Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for meeting with us today. I'm Amanda Leah, and I'm super excited to introduce a very inspirational woman for us carnivores. She loved, now hates nuts for the pains they give her, like they do for many of us. And from what I've heard her say, her husband still thinks she's a crazy carnivore, but she's not hungry all the time anymore, and she's healing her relationship with food. So thanks so much for joining us, Sarah Kleiner, aka at Carnivore Yogi. Yay! You feeling fab today, Sarah?
I am. I'm having a great day. Thank you for asking. Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you for bringing me on.
It's our pleasure. We're so happy to have you here to chat with us. And I know all the women are super excited to have you, and we'll definitely get into that chat so you can answer some of their burning questions a little later. But first, why don't you start by sharing your journey to carnivore?
Sure. So some of you guys might know just from different things I've posted that I have really had a problem with food addiction my whole life. I have lost 100 pounds 3 separate times in my life. The last time was right after my daughter was born. Now my daughter's 12. So I've been able to keep off that 100 pounds for the last 12 years, but that's been a big struggle for me just to find really a way of eating that doesn't drive me crazy, as I like to say. And so I have done everything under the sun, vegan for a couple of years, vegetarian, paleo. I've done every diet, the cabbage soup diet. I mean, I could just literally probably talk all day about different diets that I've tried and how miserable they made me, just hungry all the time. And I think what led me to carnivore was, it was, November of 2018. I went to the gynecologist, and I had been having really, really painful cycles, and I had put on a bunch of weight, and I just felt miserable. I was really tired. I was really exhausted all of the time. And, my doctor was kind of like, well, let's do an ultrasound. I had a bunch of cysts on my ovaries. And so that was like a little troublesome. She said, you've got PCOS, we've got some insulin resistance going on. My blood work came back and showed that. And so she was like, well, there's not really much I can do for you except put you on birth control, and I was just not willing to do that because I had tried birth control after my daughter was born. It made me horribly sick. And I didn't want to go back on birth control. And so I kind of said, all right, well, I guess I'm going to have to figure this out. And a friend of mine who is also a functional medicine doctor, chiropractor, she messaged me and said, hey, I've been doing the carnivore diet for the last 5 months. Maybe it's something you might want to consider. And I was like, you're out of your mind. Like, and I was at the time kind of experimenting a little bit with AIP, which is autoimmune paleo protocol, but still just having problems and still running into binge behaviors, like I do well, and then I would just like go off the rails and eat and feel even worse, and then gain even more. It was like the littlest thing that I would eat, I would just gain 10 pounds. Like I would look at something and just gain weight, and it was the worst. And no matter how much exercise I did or dieting I did, just nothing changed, and I kept feeling worse. So I was like, fine, this sounds really crazy, but if she's been doing it for 5 months and she's like still alive, and she looks great. She's 47, but she could easily pass for someone in their early 30s. I mean, she's like gorgeous. So I was like, okay, well, seems to be doing okay with her. So I kind of, did like we did. I started just perusing around, looking at carnivore, and started looking at, people like Kelly Hogan, started watching interviews, listening to podcasts, just really immersing myself in all that stuff before I even did it. And then it was like the very beginning of last year, like the first week of January, I said, all right, I'm just going to do it. So I pretty much just jumped right in. I wasn't keto. I wasn't even paleo. I had really overindulged in a bunch of chocolate over the holidays. I mean, like crazy amounts of chocolate. I remember it. And I was just like, I have got to feel better. So literally right away, within the first couple of weeks, like my stomach was flat for the first time in years because, I had just always thought like you're supposed to eat a ton of vegetables and you're supposed to eat just a little bit of meat and tons of vegetables I was eating nuts and all that stuff. And I just had the worst digestion. I would literally have to sleep out on the couch some nights, especially if I get into cashew nuts. Like cashews were like the worst, but they were my favorite. But if I had cashews, I'd be out on the couch sleeping because I just would, the smell coming from the bedroom would kill anyone in their sleep. It was embarrassing. I also had a lot of joint pain, but really within the first couple of weeks, it was like, boom, my stomach was flat. I was feeling better. A lot of the problems I was having, it was like somebody took a little vacuum cleaner and sucked like 15 pounds off my body. It was just inflammation. It just was gone. So I just kept going. And at first I said, this is just going to be 30 days. I'm just going to try this for 30 days. And and here I am, like today, still doing this, still doing carnivore. And the cool thing is, so my husband is in the lab business. He works with a lot of gynecologists, it's like his job. And so the gynecologist that I see, he's like really good friends with. It's one of his biggest clients. He's had her for like 8 or 9 years. I just went this last Friday for my annual appointment, and we did ultrasound. We had done one previously and it didn't show anything, but this last one, everything's totally clear. And I've had fibroids removed also, which were really painful. I had like a whole surgery where they cleaned out, my whole uterus because they were covered in fibroids. And so she just checks me every time I go for cysts or fibroids, but I had 0 fibroids. I had 0 cysts. And then we did a ton of blood work because, my husband still thinks I'm going to die from this diet, but, and he still drinks his green smoothies, but I'm like, that's what you got to do. That's fine. But yeah, I felt so good after that appointment because it's like what I'm doing. Yeah, a lot of us come and we're like, we want weight loss. We want the quick fix, but when you have like cysts and growths on the inside of your body just completely dissipate. And like what else? I didn't do anything else except change my diet. In fact, I quit exercising completely for about 6 months. I had been over exercising, and what my friend, Dr. Rimka, the functional medicine doctor, she said, just don't work out for a little while. Just really and truly give your body this chance to heal, and just, see what happens, because you've been doing this crazy workout diet routine for years. It's driving you crazy. It's wrecking your body. So yeah, I just try to listen to that advice, and over the last year, my carnivore, what I did a year ago versus what I do now looks completely different. But I'm still doing it, and I love it. And I started these accounts just thinking, I just want to surround myself with support. So I love MeetRx. I love this whole platform because I think that if you're going to do a diet like this, you're not really going to want to go tell people in your daily life, I'm a yoga teacher. That's my profession. I teach in the studio. I have corporate clients. I have private clients. It's what I've done for the last decade. So I don't really go around telling a lot of my clients or people unless they ask me, because people have started to notice like a change with me. And they're like, wow, you look completely different. Your skin looks different. Your hair looks different. Like your body composition is completely, because I run around in leggings and like a tank top for my job. So they're going to be able to tell those changes, so if someone comes to me with like a worthy, question and honest, then I will just tell them, like, this is what I've been doing for the last year. This is how it's made me feel and the benefits I've had. So, but I think that it's very isolating sometimes to do a diet like this, because most people are going to like I did, like, look at you, like, are you completely out of your mind? Like, you're going to die if you just eat meat. Like, you need the vegetables, you need fiber, you need, so it's a debate that people will try to start with you if you just go out there and start telling everyone. And honestly, like, it's not worth my time and energy to debate people over my health and the results that I've had. I'm like, I just you can just look at me if you're really interested. I have a YouTube and I have an Instagram and I've documented the whole journey. So if you're really interested, you can go look at that. and I don't really feel the need to like preach about it and tell people about it. So having a support system like this, like MeetRx, and just surrounding yourself with positive people that are doing this, I think is just so important for your success. It's a big part of your success. I've been super lucky to connect with people like Laura Spath and Kelly Hogan and some really other cool lady carnivores. And you know, that's been tremendous for me, just to have those voices, you know, when I'm thinking, oh, I don't know if this is right. Like, you know, you doubt yourself because you've been brainwashed your whole life. You've been told, okay, meat's going to kill you. Meat's bad. It's bad for the environment. It's harmful, blah, blah, blah. And so you do run into those doubts sometimes. You know, you do think like maybe this isn't the right thing for me to be doing. But you know, the more that I just continue to do this and stay on this path, the better, you know? Yeah. And you guys can find me. I'm on Instagram. It's at carnivore.yogi. And then I have a YouTube channel also. I don't know if there's a way to put that link up there. And then I think I just saw a question about weight loss. Yes. So weight loss, I definitely want to talk about that because initially I did drop like 15 pounds, like quickly, easily. And I think that was water weight and I think it was inflammation, but, you know, I wanted to lose 15 more. And I'll be honest with you guys, the harder I tried to lose that next 15 pounds, the more it just kind of stuck to my body because I stressed out about it. I did some extended fasting. You know, I did a lot of the things that the longer term carnivores, like if you go into the zeroing in on health groups, like Dana and Kelly and Lisa, I think she's one of the longer term carnivores. I think she comes in on MeetRx, and a lot of them say don't really do a lot of extended fasting. So anything over 24 hours, but I am stubborn and somehow think that I'm different. So I started trying to do a lot of extended fasting, like 72-hour fasts. In July, I was going to do a week-long water fast. It ended up being 6.5 days. I ended up getting sick from doing that fast. And I never lost an ounce, really. I would lose weight initially from a fast, but then it would just kind of come back afterwards. And it just wasn't effective for me. And it kind of drove me crazy. I think it just made me really stressed out. And I have, you know, I have a history of eating disorders. You don't lose 100 pounds 3 times if you don't have some sort of an eating disorder history. You know, I have a real problem with food addiction. So the fasting was triggering me just a bit. So, you know, and I did a whole YouTube video on this, but I made a decision. I think it was like November. It was in October of last year, you know, as carnivore. I said, I'm going to just eat. I'm not going to do any fasting over 16 hours on purpose, you know, and I'm just going to eat, and I'm just going to eat meat. So I did take eggs out of the equation for a couple months. I've since added them back in. They're no problem for me, but I took out dairy and I took out eggs. And all of November and all of December, I just ate. And some days it was like 3 pounds of meat. Some days it was more than that. But I just said, you know, if I'm hungry, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to eat a burger, you know, or a couple of burgers. And then if I'm hungry for lunch, I'll have lunch, you know. So I just allowed myself the freedom, which I've never done my whole life. I've never in my whole life just been okay with letting myself eat. I've always had a guilt about it, or you're going to gain weight, or, you know, if you're hungry, you should just try to stifle that hunger signal. Because I could never really trust my hunger before carnivore because my blood sugar was completely unstable. You know, I've worn I have one on right now, a continuous glucose monitor to just see how my blood sugar looks. And on carnivore, it's like, it's so steady. It's the only time it spikes is if I exercise, like a high intensity exercise, because your body is going to produce glucose to help you exercise. But my blood sugar is so super stable. But I had to kind of go through the couple months of just eating, you know, of eating unlimited meats. And I didn't gain any weight. I actually, January hit, very 1st of January, and here we are at the very end of January. Since beginning of January, and I have not changed a single thing, you guys, I have dropped 15 pounds. I dropped the 15 pounds I wanted to drop. And it was completely like effortless. I think a part of that was just allowing myself that freedom to eat and learning my own hunger signals. And I guess intuitive eating, which has been like a kind of a foreign term to me. I'm like, what the hell is intuitive eating? Like, what does that mean? Like, I want to eat like all the time. But that started happening for me once I just allowed myself to eat. And now, I guess people are asking, like, what's a typical day of eating like for me? How much do I eat? Typically for me, unless it's a PMS week. So I'll talk to you guys about my PMS week because that's what I'm in right now. So it's like on the forefront of my mind, but mostly the first 3 weeks of the month, like, so during the week of my cycle and then the next week and the next week, I'm like pretty steady eating pattern. Usually I'm not really hungry for breakfast. If I am, I'll eat. I'm not going to set a clock and say, oh no, you're doing a 16-hour fast a day. You can't have breakfast if you're hungry. Like, don't eat. No, if I wake up hungry, I'm going to eat. But usually the first 3 weeks of the month, I'm not really that hungry when I first wake up. So I will typically eat around 11 or so. And I usually have about a pound of meat. Red meat is what I prefer. I do add a little chicken in there every now and then, but beef and bacon is kind of like my staple. And then I'll go, the rest of the day, the afternoon, and probably around 5 o'clock or so, I will have a second meal. And that's a lot of times, just another pound of meat. Beef is my favorite, but I've also been adding in a little bit of seafood. So wild salmon, I've been doing a little bit of cod with tons of butter on top. I love bacon. But really, I'm pretty much during those first 3 weeks of the month sticking to about 2 meals a day, between 1 and 2 pounds of meat. Now, if I'm hungry and I want to eat more, I'll eat more. I don't have rules. I don't count calories. I don't do macro tracking. I did that when I was doing the overworking and like overthinking about that 15 pounds I really wanted to lose. I tried everything. I tried like, let's do high fat carnivore, and I added beefs to it, and let's add butter. Okay, well, let's do a lower fat version. And that it was like nothing. It didn't do anything good for me except stress me out. So that week right before my cycle, which is what I'm in right now, I typically will eat more during that week. And I typically do wake up hungry that week. And it's just hormonally what my body is going through to prepare me to have a cycle, and I didn't really understand that, nor did I honor that for quite some time. I would try to starve myself and then end up like, going on a binge or eating too much or just having a lot of like anxiety about needing to eat more, wanting to eat more. But now that I'm, I've kind of understand how my body works a little bit better, I just allow myself. It's like, okay, PMS week. So you want to eat a couple extra burgers. You want to eat a little bit more bacon. Cool. Just do it. It's not going to hurt you, So I have really a lot more of a relaxed attitude about it. And again, I don't really like gain a bunch of weight from eating extra meat. That's one thing that I've learned. So I don't know if that answers the question about what I eat in a day, how many meals, all that stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. You're answering so many questions. We're so excited. And thank you for keeping up with the chat also.
Yeah.
People are loving it so much. And we can all understand what it's like to do this intuitive eating thing and to hear about your fibers being gone and zero cysts. I mean, it's overwhelming. And obviously we all agree that carnivore, Meet RX, and having a community is so helpful. So we're glad you agree. There's another question here. Did you ever gain during your time on carnivore, and how long have you been carnivore? I know you talked about that a little already, but if you wouldn't mind going over that again.
Yes. Now I find that, and I did have times where I gained a little bit of weight. For me, that was when I was eating dairy. So when I have cheese in my diet, I really am out of touch more so with my satiety signals. Like for me, it just throws me off and I end up eating more cheese, more meat, more of everything. So I did. And that's actually what kind of prompted me to do that water fast back in July, was some weight gain. I said, oh my gosh, I've gained some weight and I'm doing this diet and I'm eating meat and everyone thinks I'm going to die anyway. And this is bad. So I'm just going to water fast. And like I mentioned, it didn't do anything good for me. Of course the weight came off. but it didn't stay off because I started eating cheese again afterwards. I, emotionally wasn't managing the situation. So for me, and some people like Laura Spath is a friend of mine, and she does utilize water fasting, and it really works well for her. But for me, from my history of binging and eating disorders and all of that, it just tends to it doesn't heal that underlying issue that I have, the emotional problem that I have with addiction. It's just kind of like, a Band-Aid that doesn't really work so well. So yeah, I have experienced weight gain with carnivore. When I just let myself eat meat, and I was thinking, oh my God, like this November, December, I'm talking about where I just ate unlimited amounts of meat. I didn't gain. I was measuring my waist the whole time. My waist was like going down the whole time. Like, this is bizarre, because I'm literally eating so much meat and I'm not gaining weight. Now, I know everyone doesn't have that experience, but for me, that was my experience with just letting myself eat. But yeah, dairy puts weight on me pretty fast. Yeah.
I think a lot of us have that experience. And also, I mean, similarly to, I know I watched one of your videos and I mentioned at the beginning about the nuts. Dairy and nuts are my weak spot personally. So I'd love to know how you're managing now with, other plant foods and anything like that. Have you?
Yeah. So I have the only thing that I've really added back in that hasn't bothered me is a little bit of avocado. I don't really eat a ton of it though, just because I just would rather eat a steak, but I have tried avocado this month and it hasn't been an issue for me. I've got the glucose monitor on, and it hasn't caused like a big spike or anything, but I just would rather get a steak. So, the nuts, like I do let my daughter eat macadamia nuts. My husband has nuts. They keep the almond butter in the house, which I know is oxalates, but my husband doesn't seem to think the oxalate thing is valid. God bless him. But it's around, and for me, I just look at it now and I'm like, that's poison, because anytime I've tried to have nuts again while being carnivore, I've had really bad issues. Like my knees swelled up really bad the last time I had nuts. Like, it was really painful. So I just kind of like look at that food now, when it used to be like super like tempting to me, and I'm like, that's poison. I just try to remember like what it does to me. And I don't let myself get super hungry. So if I'm like looking at nuts and like thinking I really would love those, I'm like, girl, eat a burger. Like, go make some bacon. So you're not hungry, because if you're hungry and you're starving yourself and you're restricting yourself, you're going to be more likely to let yourself fall into the nuts, or go grab the chocolate, or, basically be putting stuff in your mouth that you don't want to be putting in your mouth because you're hungry. And that addiction center and the hunger center is like kind of lit up, and you have less access to your frontal lobe. So those decisions that kind of break, that says, no, like, maybe that's a bad idea. Like, if you're in that addiction center and if you're in fight flight because you've been starving yourself, which is what that does for a lot of people, then you're not going to have that access to that executive functioning where you make those wiser decisions about what you eat. I don't know if that makes sense.
That totally makes sense. It makes sense,
Cool.
I'm sure, for everybody in the chat too. Very powerful. Also, there's a question here in the chat about where you got your continuous glucose monitor.
Yeah, I just did a post on it. It's a company called NutriSense, and I guess I'll do a link, and there's a link under my YouTube video. I'm about to do another YouTube video that talks about meditation and exercise, and trying avocado and trying some mushrooms, which I don't necessarily recommend, but I just have done some experiments. So I'm going to do another video like that probably in a week. But it's through NutriSense, and they are a little different because they have a nutritionist inside of the app. So you scan your sensor, it takes you to an app, and you see your levels all day. You record different things, and then there's a nutritionist in there that will answer your questions. So I got really sick the first time I had a monitor on. I got a virus, and yeah, it was nasty, and I was fasting. The only time I do extended fast is if I'm sick, just because I don't feel like eating. So like I'll pull a 72-hour fast with no problem if I'm sick. I mean, and I'll just drink bone broth, and that's not a problem. But I was pretty fasted, and my blood sugars were like 120, 140, and I was like, holy crap. So I just went in the app and was like, what's going on? And she was like, are you sick? Do you have a virus? Because your blood sugars are going to go up a lot of times when you're sick because your body's trying to repair. So that's the cool thing about the monitor that I use, is that there's a nutritionist in there and they're available 24 hours a day, but you can get a CGM through your doctor. Some people, your doctor will prescribe it for you. If you feel like you have blood sugar dysregulation, you might be able to talk your doctor into it. So yeah.
That's excellent. Thanks for sharing that with us. Also,
Yeah.
we're really excited for those videos that you have coming up. That'll be great to hear about your take on reintroduction, because it's something we're all dealing with at some point, right? Another question that we're also dealing with, when you were talking about socializing a bit, how do you deal with going out or traveling, or are you using fast food to help on the days where you don't have access to your grill, or how are you dealing with that sort of thing?
I try to really prepare. If I'm going out somewhere, or like, so I stayed 100% strict carnivore during the holidays, which was tough because my family, we're Southern. We cook a lot of comfort foods, a lot of cakes, a lot of desserts. So before I went to, and we have two families here in town, my husband's family and my family. So before I went to both of those events, I had a big ass ribeye. You know, I just made sure I was full, and I was like, I'll have a little bit of the turkey, whatever, just to hang out and be with them. But before I go places to socialize, I usually will pre-eat, or if we're going to a restaurant, if I'm going out to eat with friends, I'll call the restaurant and ask them, you know, what oils do you cook with? You know, and I'll try to I'm planning. I'm always planning. If I'm going to go somewhere, I'm always planning, like, how am I going to stay carnivore? Now, I went to Bali for a week back in May. So I went from Atlanta all the way to Indonesia, and it was a vegetarian retreat, a meditation retreat. And I brought a suitcase of jerky with me and stashed it in my room. So I knew I was going to have zero access to meat while on retreat. And the cooks there made me eggs. So like everyone on retreat was like, you're eating eggs again? And I'm like, yeah, because I don't want to eat the beans and curry and like all the stuff you're eating, because I will literally get sick. So just the whole week I was on retreat in Bali, I had beef jerky and eggs, and I was fine. Of course, when I got back to the States, my husband had like a giant ribeye waiting for me and a bunch of food. So but that's how I managed the travel. I just planned. Yeah.
That's great, actually. And you mentioned bone broth earlier, and that's something I bring with me places for my planning, but that's everything. I think planning is huge. Yeah. I love to have bone broth everywhere I go, just in case, right? Or that can of sardines, or that's great. So there's more questions in the chat here. For example, did you ever use electrolytes, or any, on that note, supplementation would be good to know too.
Yes. So I have used Redmond's from day one, just to salt my food heavily. If I'm starting to feel like not just like really tired, or if I'm like really, really hungry, sometimes I'll just put a little bit of salt on my tongue. You know, but I haven't like been measuring, like, this is how many, you know, how much salt I'm trying to eat per day. Usually I just really salt my meat to taste. And I do like a good amount of salt on my meat. It's really tasty to me, the Redmond's is. And when I water fasted, I used the snake juice packets that I just bought those on Amazon. And that's what I had that, you know, during those longer water fasts. And if I'm sick, I definitely break out those snake juice packets from that I got off Amazon. But typically I just do Redmond's, you know, and I just salt my food to taste. And if I'm feeling hungry or just like kind of tired, I'll do a little salt. And usually that does the trick.
Salt, that Redmond salt is so delicious, honestly. I love it.
So good.
I
love the kosher. Yeah,
it's great. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so another great question we have, there's so many great questions coming up. Someone asked, and I've always been curious about this, especially since watching you from the beginning. How did you have a great story? How did you get the courage to start sharing it? How did you come about deciding to share it publicly?
Yeah, it was just, like I said, it was a little bit by accident. Like I was actually in a yoga class one morning and I was thinking like, okay, I think I'm probably the only person in here who's not a vegetarian, who, and I was kind of like, I think I'm going to start a page and call it Carnivore Yogi. But I started it basically to start following like Sean Baker and Michaela Peterson. And, I started my page basically just to start following other people. And then I started using it as a personal blog, like posting my meals and posting my thoughts. And it just started gathering a following, which was really cool. And I started, being a part of the community, which was really, really cool. And so it just evolved. And then it evolved to like, I'm going to share my story. And then Laura started her YouTube channel and she was like, you should start one. And so that's how the YouTube came about. And it was just kind of like, I just wanted to surround myself with inspiration, and that was just a result of it as I just started sharing. Yeah.
And aren't we all so blessed for that? Because your sharing is terrific and so inspirational. We're just so,
Thank
it's
you.
just amazing. No, but it really, it really is. I mean, when I hear you talk about your knee pains, I'm thinking I had nuts and I have pains in my arm now. And, I can really relate. And then it gives me the courage also to be able to speak out. So I think all the women in the chat probably feel the same way. There's another question here about, have you heard of Azra Conlu yet? Do you watch her? She's a recent carnivore who's in Bali.
No, I haven't. I need to check into her then. Yeah, I have not.
She is very interesting. Actually, I just saw a video that she did with her husband, who's a doctor. So that might be of interest.
Well, I'm going to very check cool. Into her. Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Okay, another friend. Someone asked, is your friend that introduced you to carnivore still carnivore?
Yes, she is carnivore. She has been carnivore a couple of years now, longer than that now. But yeah, she's still carnivore. She's still doing great. And she's been recommending it to a lot of her patients to deal with a host of issues, from mental disorders to MS. I mean, she's really seeing it in her practice as an amazing way to help people treat a host of health issues. So she's a big, she's still a carnivore. She's on Instagram. She's a Dr. Rimka, Rimka, if you guys are interested in looking her up. Yeah.
Excellent. That's excellent.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that. So another really good question is, actually we should say thanks to Dr. Rimka, because it's awesome that she introduced you to that. I think just the fact that someone has the courage to introduce someone, I think is so amazing. And then, and look what you've created for us. So just to put it out there, the next question, how do you deal with, this is a great question, a carnivore diet and yogic philosophy? Do you find that they're...
Well, so this one's interesting. If you really go back and look at the yogic texts, the Yoga Sutras, it clearly states that milk and ghee are yogic foods and foods of the gods and foods of the yogis. Ghee is used several times as offering in the yogic texts. So, and in the Vedas, which I'm now doing kind of an in-depth study, I'm moving more towards teaching meditation. I'm kind of on that track now. Meat is used as medicine several times in the Vedic texts and Ayurvedic medicine. So the thing and the conversation around yoga and food, it has, Westerners in particular, we have created this whole thing that wasn't a thing. Ahimsa is a yogic moral precept, and it talks about nonviolence and non-harming. And the way that was meant to be taught was in relation to our fellow human beings and other people. Now it has been interpreted as, and it does say in different texts, don't kill an animal, but then in the same text, they're talking about sacrificing an animal. So it's vague and it's ambiguous, but a lot of Westerners have misinterpreted those texts. And there are yoga lineages where you're not allowed to eat meat, like Kundalini. You have to take a vow. And there's Jiva Muktu. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but that's based out of New York, and they're strict vegetarian. You have to be vegetarian to do that yoga. But the yoga that I practice and that I teach, there's no food involved. That's not a part of it. And it's just, it's crappy dogma in my opinion. So yeah, I don't know if that was a lot.
No, that's great. I'm sure that's going to help a lot of people, because I'm sure a lot of people have really subscribed to yoga practice and definitely want to try and merge the ideas. So that's really helpful. Yeah. Some more great questions coming up. For example, have you noticed any changes in your sleep since going carnivore?
Yes, absolutely. I sleep better. I had gotten off of sleeping medication before I went carnivore. This is why I'm really into meditation and wanting to teach it now, is because I started meditating every day, twice a day. I went in, took a course with a teacher in person and learned how to really do it, got a technique. Within like 3 months, I was off of the sleeping medication that I had been addicted to for 20 years. And this is the other thing, I had been on antidepressants for years and years and years as well. So I had been off of these medications before, but it was never long-term. Like I'd go off my sleeping meds, I'd go off my antidepressants, but then I'd always have to go back on like 3 months later. Carnivore, I started that up, and I have been carnivore for over a year now, like 13 months. And I have not needed any sleeping medication, nor have I needed any antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications. So yeah, between meditation and carnivore, my sleep is good. I do take a little magnesium glycinate before bed. That's really one of the only supplements that I really take. And I take a little vitamin K and vitamin D. I don't even know if I need those, but magnesium just kind of chills me out before bed. But yeah, my sleep's definitely pretty good. Yeah. Yes.
That's amazing. That's so great to hear. And I'm sure a huge relief to be off of, yet again, more medication. That's
oh my gosh.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never mind, getting a really good rested sleep is everything, right? So
yes.
That's great. So another great question we have is, what is your current favorite food or meat recipe?
Oh goodness. I love good old fashioned ribeye in the cast iron. Honestly, like that is my old faithful, like with some butter, and I'm good. I love the grill too. My grill is awesome. I grill quite a bit, but really just that cast iron ribeye steak with butter, and I'm good to go. Yeah, I'm easy.
I hear that. Steak in a cast iron is everything for me too. Yes. I hear that. So another question, for some of the women, as you know, being World Carnivore Month, a lot of women have just started now. So one of the great things to get feedback on is, how do you stick with it? Any advice for people who, are trying, and women who are trying, that you might suggest they consider to keep it up if they are facing any difficulties?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to keep surrounding yourself with support, so that's like why I created my Instagram account, and I only follow other carnivores. Like I don't follow people that put up a bunch of keto treats and like desserts and stuff. I'm like, one keto treat and you're out. Like I have like a strict, like, I'm not going to fill my consciousness with pictures of your desserts, because I have tried those before and I have not had good results. And then stuff like MeatRx, like these women's meetings, I just think that this is so awesome, this platform. Just keep it in your consciousness, keep that around. If it's making you feel really good and you really want to stick with it, then you do just want to keep listening to podcasts, YouTubes. More and more of us are kind of telling our stories. So just keep yourself motivated by listening to stories of healing. And then I visualize, for myself, more healing. And I spend time at the end of every meditation that I do, just thinking about the life that I want to have and visualizing myself having that. And I see myself eating this way, and the visualization also, because it's just done so many great things for me. So I visualize it, and just keep that in your energy field. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's great. Yes, absolutely meet our ex, and community is everything. But yeah, visualization, that's also really, really good strategy. And back to what you said about preparation, of course, is
Yes.
so key.
Yes. Always be prepared.
Right? That's perfect. So another question here is, someone says, I've been thrilled with the increased energy I've been experiencing. I did a 24-hour fast ending at dinner last night. Today I feel tired and was not able to do as much gardening as I would have liked. Just ran out of steam. Not sure there's a connection. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, that really was my experience when I did the extended fasting. I would feel good during the fast because you get a lot of adrenaline, and it's kind of addicting. It's like, oh, I feel so good. I just did 48 hours or 24, like it really just does pump up that adrenaline. But then afterwards, I really wouldn't feel so good, and I think I mentioned when I did the 6.5 day water fast, I got really sick. Like I had a really inflamed throat. I thought I had strep throat. I went to urgent care and they were like, you're fine. But I was really nauseous and exhausted and felt horrible for a week after I did that fast. During the fast, I was great. I was fine, but then afterwards I was really sick. So, and there's probably a lot of detox. There's probably too much detox at once for my body to handle. So, and I think, like I said, I know a lot of women who do fasting, extended fasting, and they love it and it works well for them. But I'm just someone with my history of binge eating disorder and those types of things that it hasn't really proven to be super, super helpful for me unless I'm sick. So yeah.
That's perfect. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Okay, so another great question. What is your take on nose to tail?
Yes. So I have experimented a little bit with nose to tail. I did a 21-day raw frozen liver experiment back in September because I had actually lost my cycle from too much fasting. That 6.5 day water fast I did, it took my cycle completely away and it was gone for a couple of months. And I was like, holy crap, what should I do? And so I was like, let me just try and see if I have a little bit of liver every day, if that helps me feel better, get more energy back. So I kind of saw it as a nutrient boost. So within 6 days into that raw frozen liver experiment, my cycle came back 6 days in, which was awesome. And it's been regular ever since then, which is really awesome. Because a lot of people say your cycle is a vital sign for your body. So I kept up that experiment. I felt really great. But since I did that experiment, that was back in September, I haven't really done a lot of organ meat. I drink bone broth, which I think has the collagen and all the good stuff. I do eat bone marrow. I love bone marrow. It's good. So this is my take on nose to tail. I think you should eat what you enjoy. I hate liver. I was eating it frozen and I was swallowing it whole. And that's just I haven't been doing that. And I feel fine. I feel great. I do love oysters. So oysters are good if you feel like you want the nutrient boost. Oysters are very nutrient dense. They're very comparable to beef liver. But yeah, I don't really know if nose to tail is important. I don't know. For me, I really don't know. But that's my experience with it, and I don't really eat a ton of organ meats.
That's excellent. Thanks for your feedback. That's good that you
Yeah.
tried the experiment, and see, we get to
I did.
gain from hearing what you learned. Yeah, it's great. And you got your period back. So at the end of the day, it was clearly good.
Yeah.
For the moment. So another question, you mentioned that your hair has changed since going carnivore. Can you describe how it changed?
It grows really annoyingly fast. I have to get haircuts a lot more often. And it's thicker also. I already had really thick hair, but it's even thicker and it grows faster. And people tell me it's shinier and more vibrant. So yeah, it's just a lot healthier overall.
Yeah, I totally hear that. That's great. It looks stunning.
Oh,
I
thank
loved,
you.
actually, I saw your video of you doing your makeup and hair, and that was awesome. I loved watching you
Oh,
do your hair. You were like,
thank
you can
you.
fast forward, and I was like, I'm not fast forwarding. I want to watch.
Oh, thank you.
So continuously inspiring. Someone else says, yeah, it looks shiny to me. Awesome. So someone else, so someone else is asking in the chat, do you add extra fats in your day?
Usually not. I have experimented with that in the past. You know, I would add beef suet to my meals and I would add butter, and I ended up gaining weight also during that time. So it did start to add extra weight to me. I didn't experience any big benefits because I know it's supposed to put you into like a deeper level of ketosis to do like a higher fat approach. But for me, like I said, it just made, I was just as hungry adding the fats as I was when I didn't have the fats. So I really don't. You know, I eat bone marrow, which is a fat. But yeah, I haven't found great amounts of success with adding extra fats. Other people have, but not for me.
That totally makes sense. We're finding obviously a lot of people, some people need more fat, some people need less, some people do
Yes.
better with leaner meats. Depends.
Yes.
And experimentation, I guess, is the name of the game in what we're doing also, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Another question, do you have, Sarah, for us, a simple meditation recipe you could advise?
So I have another YouTube channel, which it's, if you go on my YouTube channel, it's under featured channels, and it's like just my guide. I have like over 60 different guided meditations that I've recorded. And I'm starting to throw some yoga videos up there too. And I also highly recommend the book. It's called Bliss More by a guy named Light Watkins, he's my teacher now. He comes through Atlanta. He goes to LA, New York, Atlanta. He comes through, goes to London also. And I ended up reading his book, and that was the book that gave me the technique to start meditating. And it was so powerful and it worked so well for me that I was like, I have to find him and train with him. And so my husband and I both have studied in person with Light, and we continue to study with him when he comes through town. But I definitely recommend my free meditations. And then also that book is so easy to read, and I recommend it to all of my yoga and meditation and lifestyle coaching clients. It's called Bliss More, and his name is Light, like a light bulb, Watkins.
Excellent. I'm sure everybody's got that written down and people will be taking that on. That's excellent. And we'll definitely be checking out your yoga page as well. YouTube channel. Another question, how do you suggest people navigate a relationship with someone who is not open to carnivore? That's a great question. Thank you, chat person.
Yeah. And that's been my story. My husband still has a green smoothie every day. And I've like tried to explain to him about oxalates. I've talked to him about Sally K. Norton. I mean, I'm like, it's fallen on deaf ears. And largely he's been very skeptical about what I've been doing, you know, so I've just had to do me, you know. And when I cook for the family, because my daughter is not carnivore, but I cook meat for me and I cook meat for them, but then I'll make them sides. So I do cook vegetables for them. I do cook a little bit of rice, you know, things. I try to do the stuff that doesn't have the anti-nutrients. I try, if I'm cooking and I'm making the choice for them, it's going to be low anti-nutrients. You know, they do a lot of avocado, they do steak, you know, so like whatever I'm eating, cool, I'm cooking for me, and then I'm just going to give them whatever. And yeah, my husband has definitely over the last, 13 months that I've been doing this, been like, you're killing yourself. Like, not really the most supportive, but in my heart, I knew that and I know that this is helping my body, and I have proof of it now. Medically, I'm like, go, you look at my ultrasounds, like talk to the doctor. She's your friend. She will tell you, like, lots of cysts, lots of fibroids, zero. So yeah. And when I told him that, he was kind of like, wow, that's really some proof, that's really interesting. So, I mean, you just kind of have to do you. and maybe the other person will jump on board too. But yeah, that's my only advice with that. I don't know if that helps or not.
Oh, that certainly helps. I'm sure there's
Okay,
many
good.
of us carnivore women who are dealing with, as the person in the chat put it, a mixed diet relationship. So
Yeah.
thanks for giving us some feedback on that. Another question that's come up is, have you been able to make any friends or help any friends, sorry, or other extended family members?
You know, just recently, a really good friend of mine, I've been helping her just kind of one-on-one over the last 6 weeks. Her and her husband both have gone carnivore. And because she had a lot of the same issues that I had, she had a lot of extra weight. And, you know, I was just texting with her last night, and they're both just doing amazing. So just one so far. And you know, I don't know how many people on Instagram have like kind of watched my stuff and it's helped them, but in person, just the one friend so far. So yeah. Yeah.
That's great. And you've definitely helped tons of people so far, but definitely it's good to hear
Oh,
about the people in your life. We all know that that's the stuff that we're trying to
yeah.
catch, right? But at the end of the day,
Yes,
one person at a time, that's how we get this going, right? How anything good
exactly.
happens.
Yeah,
Amazing.
absolutely.
So I think we've run out of questions from the chat, and we've learned so much from you. We're so
Oh,
grateful to
thank
have had
you.
you. So thank you again for coming and
Yeah.
being a part of this Meet Our X community and keeping the support for carnivores going.
Thank you for having me. It was just a huge honor, like completely I mean, wonderful. Thank you.
Well, pray you keep up and enjoy health benefits and your health creation from your carnivore diet moving forward, and feel fab.
Thank you.